Previously on the seventh day.
The Sabbath, the most glorious day in the law, has been changed into the Lord's day. This has not been done by the command of Christ, but by the authority of the church.
I care not whether you keep Saturday's Sabbath, Sunday's Sabbath, or Monday's Sabbath. But if we have respect to God or to his scriptures, let us give him a day of his own choice and not another.
And now, part 9 of the seventh day. Revelations from the lost pages of history.
Come in. Let's get these wet things off before you freeze to death.
The governor sent me. It's a matter of great urgency. I must speak with your husband.
He's not well, Tom, but I know he'll be glad to see you. Come and sit by the fire. Roger, you must wake up. Tom Miller is here from Governor Winthrop.
Tom Miller. Aren't you a sight for sore eyes? What brings you all the way from Boston on a night like this?
The governor sent me, sir. I've ridden the whole way with no rest. But it's a matter of great urgency. Mr. Winthrop sends word of great danger for you. The magistrates want to send you back to England. They've dispatched Captain Underhill and his men to take you by surprise.
So, my high and mighty judges, they're not content with banishing me from the colony. Do they not know I am a sick man? Mary, some of that special tea, please. I would offer you some, but it's a rather bitter concoction. I was taught it by the wild Americans, the barbarians, as the Christians like to call them. And yet we are the ones who have stolen their birthright and occupied their homeland. And we call them barbarians. Thank you, dear.
And I've got something for you too, Tom.
So, it seems as though they are afraid I will find refuge in this wilderness and raise an army of malcontents and nonconformists. This is now their plan for my future. It's the dead of winter, and they want to send me on a ship back to England.
Perhaps England would be a welcome change. More civilized and all.
Civilized, you say? Let me tell you what going back to England means. Going back to England means falling into the merciful hands of the Archbishop William Laud. I can well remember how civilized he was when he condemned Alexander Leighton for following his own conscience.
Leighton?
Well, you've not heard of him. As fine a Christian as walked. In civilized England, William Laud, in Christian kindness, you can be sure, condemned him to 36 stripes across his naked back, to have his ears cut off, his nose split, and his face branded. And then our Christian friend had him pilloried in the frost and snow. I suppose my crimes are worse than his. I am to be hounded from my home and family for standing in support of freedom, for preaching the gospel of liberty, and for upholding the rights of every man, even the Indian. Tom Miller, thank you for bringing me this news. Go to the governor and thank him for his warning. I tell him I am not for England. I will live free in this new world, whatever the cost.
But, sir, what
No arguments, my lad. I'll be fine. I know this good land far better than Captain Underhill, I can assure you of that. And go now. And God be with you.
And with you, sir.
Good lad, that. Mary, those things you set aside for me, I need them now. I will leave tonight.
Tonight? But you're ill. If you go out in that storm, it will be the death of you.
It will be the death of me if Underhill catches me here. I must be gone and far off before he and his men ever arrive. Those things, please.
Yes, I've got them here. I'm not sure which is worse, having Underhill catch you or you catching your death out in this storm.
I'll take my chances with the storm any day.
At least, kiss your babies goodbye. They will miss you terribly, as will I.
Do not disturb them. You will all be in my thoughts every waking moment. And God willing, we will be together very soon. I must go now. If Underhill catches me here, you may well be in danger yourself.
It was January 1636 when Roger Williams left home and hearth to brave the icy cold of that New England winter. His flight was an act of defiance against a repressive regime. And this was a defining moment in the cause of religious liberty. And it would have a significant impact on the story of the seventh-day Sabbath. Historians and biographers portray Roger Williams as a man of strong convictions, a warm heart, and a stubborn, invincible will. He was passionate about the individual rights of all men, and he advocated the separation of church and state, a truly radical concept in a world where religion was enforced by civil law. After his escape from Salem, he made his way southward through the trackless wilderness, surviving on whatever he could scrounge up from the forest floor. Eventually, he found shelter with the Native American tribes who lived on Narragansett Bay. His enemies must have been glad to be rid of him, but family and friends were eager to learn if he had survived the harsh winter months.
I'm sorry. I'm looking for my friend, Mr. Roger Williams. I was told you may know about him. Well, he was very sick and is more than likely...
He's more than likely been nursed back to health by his good friends and is doing just fine, thank you.
Mr. Williams!
So, my young friend, you finally found me. Well enough. Does the governor still remember me? I could use some news about Salem or Boston. Come, sit down. Tell me.
Well, sir, Mr. Winthrop bade me find you and wishes for news that you are well. And Mrs. Williams sends her love, too, and says that she and your daughters are fine and hope to see you soon.
I am well, as you can see. And thanks to God and the kindness of my red friends here, I shall soon have a grant of land, and fairly earned.
This is the land of liberty you are seeking.
Liberty, inalienable rights, and no power of government over spiritual matters. Does it seem strange to you that I claim freedom for every man? Well, the Puritans of Boston used the sword to enforce their religion. But to force religion on an unwilling convert is nothing less than the rape of a soul. See, Tom, the sword of man can force an entire nation into a sort of formal religious pretense. But that is worthless before God. It is only the sword of his spirit that can rightly rule over matters of conscience. So, when you go to the governor, tell him, I must act according to my conscience. I will have a land of freedom, where men may live and worship according to their consciences. And take word to Mary that I will send for her soon. I miss her and the babies very much. My youngest is named Freeborn, which which is exactly what she is. I am determined that she will grow up in a land of liberty. I will make a place for my family where we can be truly free. Now, you must be starved. And let me tell you,
The grant of land that Roger Williams received, fairly earned, from the Narragansett tribe, became a safe haven for those who opposed the mandatory religion of the established colonies. His vision of personal freedom is immortalized in the charter of the Rhode Island colony, the colony that he founded. Here's what it says: "No person within the said colony at any time hereafter shall be anywise molested, punished, disquieted, or called in question for any differences in opinion in matters of religion." And there were differences of opinion, many of them, including the matter of the weekly day of worship. Roger Williams' own correspondence shows that he recognized the seventh day of the week, Saturday, as the Bible Sabbath. His Rhode Island colony provided fertile and protected ground for the seeds of seventh-day Sabbath keeping in America. News of Roger Williams' radical new colony aroused widespread criticism in England. But the promise of freedom from religious tyranny was appealing to many, and they were willing to brave the sea and the wilderness frontier in their quest for liberty. Among those who boarded the ships was a Baptist couple from Tewksbury, Stephen and Ann Mumford. They are the ones who carried the seventh-day Sabbath to the New World.
In 1665, Stephen and Ann Mumford arrived in Newport, Rhode Island. They likely came because this was where there were Baptist churches, a colony where there was complete religious freedom, the only colony with that freedom. They may also have come for economic reasons. Mumford was a businessman, very successful later on, and this was a busy commercial port.
In December of 1671, the Mumfords and a handful of others formed the first Seventh-day Baptist congregation in America. The group flourished within the protected environment of Rhode Island, but when members ventured beyond the shelter of their home colony, they ran into trouble.
In Connecticut, for example, members of the Newport Church were fined, even imprisoned, for working on Sunday because their worship day was Sabbath, and that was a way that the state could harass them for their nonconformity.
Those early Seventh-day Baptists saw that their Sabbath beliefs and practices would stir up conflict in any Sunday-keeping community. Their solution was to heed the call of freedom on the expanding frontier.
The pattern of establishing churches at the edge of the frontier, which happened over and over again, partly was because it was easier to find uninhabited land, to start the town, to start the church, to create other institutions that were conducive to Sabbath keeping and to religious freedom in general. And this happened all the way across the country, so that by 1900 their churches were scattered clear to California.
But as the years went by, it became more and more difficult for Seventh-day Baptists to steer clear of trouble. The frontier territories became states. Some of those states enacted Sunday laws, and that brought unfortunate, even tragic consequences.
Well, it must have been back about, 1885. They come out from somewhere in Ohio, the two of them, she's still in her teens. They were just married, and they came out to live their lives in the Promised Land. Danfield, that may have been the name. He was John. I don't think I ever really knew her name. She, pretty little thing though. She, hard worker even when she was expecting. They took that land over by the state line, 4 or 5 miles from town. They had a horse, a couple of cows, and really did a nice job with that place. They had a fine cabin and a good well, and that first year they grew up a right nice garden. Now, most folks in this area are religious. These people were Seventh-day Baptists, you know, the ones that take Saturday for Sunday. Living so far out of town, I thought that their religion would be their own business. But they did have things sort of mixed up, not working on Saturday. Sabbath, they called it, and They treated Sunday like any other working day when the other people were going to church. Anyway, things were going fine until a mean-hearted citizen brought a complaint to the grand jury. The grand jury, mind you. I thought there was no call for that, but folks were saying that John was defiling the Lord's day every week. But he was only doing what he thought God wanted him to. But that made no difference. That grand jury, they tried him, convicted him, and sentenced him right then and there. He had to pay a fine or go to jail. Now, this young feller had real spine. He figured since it was a free country, he could have his own religion and follow it. He flat refused to pay. Well, sir, those deputies, they drug him right off to jail. Left his wife alone up there with a babe just a few weeks old. It was bad enough, him in jail, worrying about his wife and babe and all, but it was even worse for her. Separated from her husband, no support from anyone. Oh, one or two of the ladies did come up from town, but she was pretty much left on her own up there. She hoped every day to see him coming up the road, coming home to her. They say that she sat up by the gate holding her babe for hours at a time. A few weeks went by like that. Well, the babe took sick, and next thing we heard, the poor little thing had died right in its mama's arms. It was heartbreaking seeing her and a few of the town folk putting that little bundle in the ground. Her man in jail, unable to comfort her. No comfort in it for him either. That poor child, she just wasted away after that up there, crying all alone, night after night. Well, John, he served his time. They finally let him go. And he headed off for home, just looking forward like crazy to seeing his wife. When he got there, his neighbors were carrying something out. It was a coffin's what it was. It was his wife's. She had took sick. If you ask me, I'd say it was a broken heart that killed her. Well, he never said a word. He just followed him up to the graveyard and watched him put his wife in the ground next to his little baby. And he threw himself down and he cried till there were no more tears left to cry. He hardly said goodbye to his soul before he rode out of here. We haven't heard from him since. I just hope he found a place where he could live free.
The Seventh-day Baptists weren't the only ones who moved out to the frontier for religious reasons. Conrad Beisel, a young German refugee, was looking for a new place to put down his own roots. He arrived in Pennsylvania in 1720, looking for a quiet place where he could experience the presence of God. But there were just too many distractions in the settlements around Philadelphia. So he moved west to the wilderness, along the banks of the Cocalico Creek, in what is now the town of Ephrata. Several friends followed him there, and together they formed a tight-knit spiritual community, the Ephrata Cloister. Beisel guided the spiritual life of his flock, instructing them in doctrine and Christian living. He wrote hundreds of hymns to enhance their worship experience, hymns that are still sung today by the world-renowned Ephrata Cloister Chorus. They were hard-working, industrious folks. They put up sturdy buildings, planted orchards and gardens, and operated a successful printing business. It was a physically exhausting lifestyle there on the frontier, and that gave special meaning to their weekly day of rest, Saturday, the seventh day.
Beisel described his Sabbatarian views in a treatise he wrote in 1728, Mysterion Animius, or the Mystery of Lawlessness. In that treatise, he described the Sabbath as a gift of God's grace to release people from work once a week.
The Sabbath was a day when Beisel and his companions could eat bread without toil and labor. But the other 6 days of the week were definitely work days. This brought Beisel's community into conflict with the Sunday laws of Pennsylvania.
In 1730, the Ephrata community had legal troubles for breaking the Sunday laws of the colony of Pennsylvania. Some of the brothers were even arrested and imprisoned in Lancaster.
Although Beisel and his followers were out of step with the wider society around them, they steadfastly maintained their observance of the seventh-day Sabbath. You see, it was not only a day of rest, it was a day that for them represented an eternal reality.
Also, his view of the coming of Christ and the millennium was a hope for the eternal Sabbath. So each week when the community would observe the Sabbath, they anticipated the return of Christ and what for them would be eternal rest.
Like Beisel, Nicholas Ludwig von Zinzendorf was born in Germany. He was a count, part of a noble family. Even as a young man, he had a sensitive devotional spirit. When he was 19, he visited a gallery in the town of Dusseldorf, where he saw a painting that would change his life forever. It portrayed Jesus on the cross, wearing the crown of thorns. Beneath the painting, he read the words, "All this I have done for thee. What hast thou done for me?" Count Zinzendorf devoted the rest of his life to answering that question. In 1722, he permitted a group of refugees to settle on his land in eastern Germany. They were a remnant of the Moravian religious movement that traced its roots back to the teachings of John Huss, who had died as a martyr some 3 centuries earlier. Now, although Zinzendorf was a lifelong Lutheran, he fostered a spiritual renewal among the Moravians, reviving their faith and inspiring them with a new vision. In fact, he eventually became a bishop in the reborn Moravian church.
Zinzendorf had a vision of how the message of Christ's love could be shared with the whole world. And so beginning in 1732, he sent the Moravians out all across the world as missionaries to take the gospel across cultural boundaries.
9 years later, in 1741, some of Zinzendorf's missionaries arrived in eastern Pennsylvania to begin their work among the Native American Indians. They founded the town of Bethlehem, and a short time later, the Count arrived to help organize the community and advance its mission.
Nicholas Zinzendorf had the idea that the Native Americans were the 10 lost tribes of Israel. And so for them to become truly Christian, they needed to have an understanding of the Jewish heritage as well, which included certainly Sabbath observance.
Zinzendorf himself observed the seventh day of the week as a day of rest from labor and for communion with God and fellow believers. He recommended this practice to the Moravians in Bethlehem. They agreed unanimously, stating that the Sabbath is to be observed in quietness and in fervent communion with the Savior.
Zinzendorf felt that the Sabbath was the actual day of rest, and that's when they began to mentally prepare themselves to, as I believe Zinzendorf wrote at one point, let God work in them. And then Sunday was the legal Sabbath that English law provided for, and the Moravians actually practiced both.
But it seems that Zinzendorf himself didn't necessarily consider Sunday as a day of rest. During the summer of 1742, he went on a tour of Moravian Indian missions. One Sunday, he and his party were camped out near Hurley, New York.
While they were there, some of the local dignitaries came to visit them, and Count Zinzendorf was somewhat distracted because he was writing a hymn, and so he did not receive the visitors with the attention that they felt was their due. One of these worthies announced that he was the justice of the peace and, with a sort of huffy attitude, remarked that the Count seemed to be very industrious for a Sunday afternoon. The next day, he hailed the Zinzendorf party into court and fined them 18 shillings for Sabbath violation.
Next time on the seventh day,
remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God.
Of course, I know the passage well.
How can you content yourself with observing the first day?
But, sister...
The first day, Elder Wheeler, which is Sunday, rather than the seventh day, which is Saturday.